This is a short instructional video covering the music of Django Reinhardt. In this video I'm only going to be showing 4 short examples from some licks I transcribed from the song called Django's Tiger. This video is not really meant as an instructional video on gypsy jazz guitar. There's much better videos out there and sources online to actually learn that style. But what I wanted to do in this video was to really dive into the music itself and show some of the concepts that Django was using in creating these lines that he did that sound so exciting. So in this video I'm going to be showing 4 different licks covering dominant 7 and also major 6 types of ideas. I find these licks very useful for applying them in country, in blues to get more of a jazzy tone, and also rockabilly and western swing styles. I hope you get something out of these examples. You can find transcriptions and tablature for all these examples that I'm showing on my website called CrazyComposer.com. Look for the blog article called Discovering the Magic of Django, where you can actually look at all the tablature and the standard notation for all these licks. In the first 2 examples, I'm going to be covering some ideas that he used over dominant 7 chords and then how he would resolve those to a major 6 kind of chord. This will be example 1 and 2. What I like about example 1 and 2 is that it shows you some very flashy sounding licks to use over a dominant 7th chord that sound kind of angular, but they hit all the interesting notes that you can do over a dominant 7. So that would be the major 3rd, the 5th, the flat 7, and the 9th mostly. To really understand this lick, I think it helps first to kind of cover the E9 arpeggio up here in the position where the lick is happening. So an E9 arpeggio would basically be root, major 3rd, 5th, flat 7, 9th. Here's the 3rd again, 5th, flat 7, 9th. And that's basically the arpeggio that this lick is being built out of. So the way the lick happens is, in classic kind of Django style, he takes those chord tones and then he does interesting things to get in and around those chord tones to make the line sound more interesting. So rather than just play a straight arpeggio all the time, he'll do things like he'll approach chord tones with target tones in either the above the note or below the note in some way, and resolve to that chord tone in an interesting way so that the line kind of weaves itself through that arpeggio. So in this case what he's doing is he's starting the line below that 3rd. So he comes up to the 3rd chromatically, then he goes up the arpeggio, and then what he does is he does the same line above, now on the F7, so he just takes the same lick and moves it up a half set. Comes back down in the position where he can get back to the E7 again. Up the arpeggio in the same way on the 3rd time. Now what makes this look even cooler is the way he resolves it, because when he gets what he's trying to do is go from that E7 to resolve to this kind of A major 6 sound. So the way he resolves is that he takes this line, so you can basically look at the line he resolves to that A major 6 as coming out of an A arpeggio. So there's our notes on the arpeggio. He goes. That's how he starts the line. If you look at those notes, he's just going out of a major arpeggio, but he's decorating the notes by putting little half-step turns and things like that around them. So, and a common technique that he does is he takes a chord tone and he'll do a little embellishment by those kind of things above the note, what we call as kind of an upper neighbor. So he's taking the next note in the scale and just quickly going on and off of it. And then So what he's doing there, he's getting back on that chord tone, but what he's doing is he's going on and off the ninth of the chord, so that kind of brings up the ninth of the kind of gives you that sound. And then the way he resolves it at the very last few notes of that lick, he's just, and what he's doing there is he's playing a major third there, major 7, 6, so, and he's ending up on the 6th of that chord, so that's the note that kind of stands out at the end. So you have that sort of tonality coming in the way he resolves that lick. That lick on its own is very useful for things like Western swing, where you use a lot of those kind of 6 chords like that. Just makes a nice little turnaround to do on a major 6 kind of lick. Example 3 is a very cool way that Django would approach dominant 7 chords. By he would find a place where he could do sort of a very economical motion and get all the important tones covered. And I think part of the reason why he came up with this approach is he only had 2 fretting fingers to use, so he had to be careful how he set up his lines so that he could take advantage of things lying close together. In this one, what he does is he plays with chromatic notes in between key chord tones within a dominant 7 chord to bring out that tonality. But what you end up with when you get this chromatic kind of playfulness in between these notes is a lick that sounds very unpredictable, and it's adds a lot of flash. I like to use this one a lot, especially for things like old rock and roll, rockabilly kind of things. It's definitely one that's sort of an unexpected sounding lick. In this lick, what Django's doing is he's playing over this E7 chord, and he's using some really cool techniques to get some great kind of motion going with his line. So he starts the line by going, and if you look at the notes in this line, it's flat 7, 9, so that's the 5th, down to the 3rd, and then he does this cool thing. Okay, now if you kind of wonder why he's doing that, if you look at the notes in there, you've got root, so he's going root down to flat 7, 3rd down to 9th. These notes are the 13th or the 6th down to the 5th. So you got root to flat 7, 3rd to 9th, 13 down to 5th, and then you got the 9th down to the root. So the line goes, and then the last part of the line, so what he's just doing there is taking flat 7, 3rd, then, and he ends the line on this. So he's sitting on that 13th, which gives it a very cool kind of, gives it that sort of sound. So I found this lick especially useful for kind of stealing that approach and using it in country or rockabilly, where you're sitting on it like a, that sort of sound, that sort of thing. You can get kind of a real head-turning kind of lick if you bring this up the tempo. In example 4, the reason why I picked this lick is that I think it's a really good example of how Django would take a standard arpeggio kind of run, or arpeggio-based sort of run, and then right at the last part of the run, he would start to add notes out of the diminished scale to add just a little bit more tension before he'd resolve to the next chord. And I really like that about a lot of his lines, is that they're very spicy, where the line will start in some real interesting way that's right inside the chord. Then all of a sudden it goes just a little bit out of kilter, outside a little bit, hitting some of the notes like the flat 9 and other things, and then it resolves very nicely to the next chord. This example was picked for that reason. In example 4, what he's doing with this lick is he's playing over an A9 or A7 kind of a chord. And the way he's approaching this lick is he starts out playing right inside the chord. That's basically 5th, 13th, flat 7. And then he hits this note, and you're like, where'd that come from? And you can think of that as it's really a sharp 11, but I think in his context what he's doing is he's using it as kind of a setup to hit this note. So what he does in a lot of these licks is he'll approach a chord tone by playing an upper neighbor and then a half step below the note that he wants, and then bam, right on the note. And there he is on the note. So the lick goes. And up to that point, you're kind of right inside a dominant 7 or kind of A9 sort of sound. And then he goes. And these notes are kind of, this note especially is outside. That's a flat 9 that he's hitting. So he starts off by playing on the flat 7. And if you extend that, what he's really doing is he's playing out of a diminished arpeggio. And one of the tricks he used to do a lot to add tension to his dominant 7 licks is he'd play a diminished arpeggio off of the major third of that chord. So in this case, if it's a A7, if I play that off the major third there, I end up with that sound. So I kind of imply an A7 flat 9. And then is how he resolves it, and he's actually on a D6 kind of sound. So it resolves very nicely out of that. He had just a little bit of tension right at the end of the lick, and then resolves it in a very inside kind of sound. So it's classic Django technique.